Hey everybody, thank you again for tuning into my channel. So today we are going to be addressing the blockbuster question. What am I going to do with my kid? So there are a few things that I want you to keep in mind. I want you to keep actually three things in mind as we talk about this, all right? The first thing I want you to keep in mind is whatever you are going to do must not run afoul of state laws and regulations. Number two, you want to keep the safety and security of your children paramount. Number three, you want to deschool. You want to get rid of the traditional ideas as to how school has to occur. So those are the 3 points that I want to unpack. So I want to start with, even before we get to those 3 points, I want to say this. If this is something that has been laid on your heart to do, I believe, this is my faith conviction, I believe that God will send you help. And I'm not just saying that as a platitude, as some kind of trite, meaningless, vague statement that does not really provide practical help. I really believe that this is so because very often the help that we get does not come from the places that we thought it would come from. All right. And sometimes the help is there, but we don't have eyes to see. Sometimes the people we thought would support us, they don't necessarily support us. So like my parents are very, very pro education. My father is a retired chemistry teacher, public school teacher, and my mom is very pro education. And I thought they would be very skeptical about this whole idea of me homeschooling the children. When we said this was something we felt like we should do, they were not. They were so supportive. I was like shocked. Okay. Now, for some of you, that's like, no. My in-laws will think, or my parents will think it's a horrible idea. But this is my point though. Okay. Look for help. Look for the resources that have been sent to support you and be willing to embrace those resources. All right. So we first just pray about it. Ask the Lord to give you eyes to see his provision. Right. So now let's get into our arrangements in terms of, okay, what will this look like practically? Okay. So if you and your spouse both work outside your home, you have to think about school differently. Okay, so traditionally we think about school occurring between the hours of 8 to 3 or 7 to 2, or somewhere like that, somewhere along that continuum. As a working homeschooling family, you have to throw that idea out the window. And this is something that has been embraced by tens of thousands of working homeschooling families. Okay, that's out the door. School does not necessarily occur between those hours. And so if you and your spouse are able to reconfigure, to rearrange your work schedule so that there is a parent at home all the time providing oversight and supervision for your children, go for it. Go for it. Everything else, trust me, you can work out everything else. The schedule, the curriculum that your children will use, your involvement as a parent, how directly involved you will be in instruction, all that you can work out if you can work out a schedule that allows for one parent to be at home all the time, right? If you're saying that's not feasible for me, now you have to look outside. Again, like for me, this included my parents. You want to be sure that wherever you're looking at trusted resources, because the safety and security of our children, that's paramount. You also want to be sure that, I've heard homeschooling parents who say, well, so-and-so is homeschooling her children, so I'll just send, my son or daughter to their house, and it's a sort of like informal school type of thing. You want to be very careful with that. because you do not want to run afoul of state regulations. All right, there are states that have very clear guidelines about who provides primary instruction to your children. Okay, however, if your children are, let's say, working on a kind of flipped model of instruction where they are simply doing independent work in the under the supervision of a trusted adult, that's kind of different. But again, you want to check with your state laws. All right, we'll talk about a curriculum that lends itself to this kind of arrangement later on in another episode. But I do want to say this, guys, this is not like new territory. I'm not breaking new ground here. There are schools, traditional public schools, that have long embraced a flipped model of instruction where the kids receive like 60% of their instruction virtually, and then they check in with content experts throughout the day, and that check-in is based on is customized. All right, so there are children who are working ahead just based on their performance on virtual instruction, and then there are children who need additional support. So this is not new ground at all. As a matter of fact, as I stated earlier in another video, the model of the sage on stage disseminating information, that's over with. That's a model that has been outdated, derided. Nobody does that. All right. Kids in school are expected to be collaborating and problem solving and persevering through problems. It's not the model of the 1 hour lecture. So you are not expected to provide that. So for a lot of us, that's good news. Okay? So you want to look in your immediate environment and you want to think about who are the people, the trusted adults who can provide supervision for my child or children as they work, right? You want to be careful with providing instruction, all right? If we're talking about a tutor, that's something else altogether. But when we're talking about an arrangement that simulates school, you really want to be sure that you are not doing anything illegal, all right? There are co-ops that operate 3-4 days a week. In my state, there's several co-ops that offer instruction for kids like 3 days a week, okay? And that is perfectly legal. There are situations or there are arrangements in different states where homeschooling kids can participate in virtual programs that are state sponsored, and really, really interesting how that works. But my point is, think about the people who can provide resources, oversight, supervision. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but that's what this comes down to. And then get out of the thinking of school has to occur between 8 and 3. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. My husband and I, we work outside our home. So on a typical day, my children have their schedules emailed to them, sent to them through Homeschool Planet, and we'll talk about that fabulous resource later on. But they have their schedules emailed to them, all the videos, all the lessons, everything that they need to do. So I'm leaving, my mom's coming. When she gets here, they do their work. They actually end early because they do not have as much content because we homeschool all year round. So in the summer, they're doing their music and they're doing their art, the fun things, and so that has been taken care of. So they're not carrying as many subject areas. So for those of you who are thinking your kids are working, oh my gosh, like 6, 7, no. They actually end early, right? So they get a break. I get home, and when I get home, that's when the direct instruction, check-in, clarification, that's when all of that occurs. Now, here's the thing. It does not mean that I am providing direct instruction for every content that they did that day. No, it depends on the curriculum that I chose. So like my older son has a virtual math class where all that is taken care of. He would have a tutor that's online. He's doing his class online. I see the grade. I see his performance. I get a report on all that he did, but I am not the one providing direct instruction. He goes to a science co-op. Interestingly, the instructor is a doctor who works and homeschools her children. There have been instructors there who work at the Naval Academy, just professionals who have been doing this for some time. All right. So I am providing kind of supervision, oversight, directing, but I'm not the one teaching his biology class. Okay. I'm not the one doing that. And so when I say we check in after school, some of you might be thinking, oh, you're teaching for another 3 hours. I am not. I am reviewing what was done. And there might be just one content where I am providing direct instruction, or maybe two. And even so, I do the boxed curriculum, open and go, teacher's guide, everything there. I do not believe in reinventing the wheel. Not only am I not that creative, but I don't have the time for it. So I did my research before and I went with a reputable curriculum so that I know that my kids are getting the best instructionally and in terms of academic content that is out there, all right? At least the best for them. So they check in with me, and in the afternoon when they're done, they go to their after school programs. Of course, all this was pre-COVID. So they would go to wrestling, and wrestling felt like it just totally took over our lives. Anyway, and then my other son is a part of the Civil Air Patrol, fantastic program. They go on field trips. He was learning how to fly. They were doing leadership and character development. Let me tell you something. At one point, my kids were involved in so many things after school that I had to stop and say, okay, this feels worse than when you guys were in public school. I mean, how did this happen? But my point is, they were not stunted in any way. Also, the older my children got, the less need I had to check in with them every day. All right. That's one thing that we're going to talk about later on as we talk about curriculum. You want to foster that really early in your children. Excellence and that independence. You know, doing what you have to do. Working with your child, okay? So I have one child who wants to see everything that I have to do for the week on Monday. Can I see that? And I have another one who says, no, that's just too much. That's overkill. I don't want to see all that. That's just too much for me to try to process. But you want to orient them towards independence very, very quickly, as soon as possible, so that they take responsibility and that they take accountability for their work. All right. So just to sum up what we talked about today, look at your resources. Your support might not come from the places you thought it would come from. Okay. Be willing to embrace that. Be willing to be okay with that. Let go of the idea that school has to occur within the traditional framework. You have got to figure out what works for you without guilt, without comparing yourself to anybody else, and most importantly, without comparing yourself to what occurs in public school. Tell me what you think about this. Share your thoughts and comments. I'm going to be expanding a little bit more on this later on, and we will continue this journey together. Thanks for watching, guys.